fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging them moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine. Living Northwest wild, hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging them moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's home.
Getting a few. Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish on Northwest. Wayne England, Kelly Barnum. We're back in studio, my man.
We are. It feels like it's been like,
break.
What, 3 months? But it's only been like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Happy New Year, everybody, to tuning in this evening here on January 2nd, 2020.
We are not in a new decade or millennia, as I'm told. It doesn't actually start till 2021.
Yeah, I guess it depends which camp you're in. Well, people are still arguing about.
Yes.
Well, you know, we'll figure out anything to argue about nowadays. So
exactly.
Let's decide if it's, you know, 20. I don't got time for that, Barnum.
I've got time for saying it's a new decade.
I got a fire going tonight. Right? We're here. We're back in studio. We're glad you're joining us. Brought to you live every weekend or every Thursday evening right here from the studios at FHN. Got David over in IT Corner getting it done tonight with assistant Josh, who's learning the skills.
Yeah.
He's going to be taking over on some of this stuff. So happy to have him on board.
Growing the team.
Growing the team. Chef Kelly and Sherry have the night off. Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we got to give them a little break, and you know, we got a lot of other things going on that we wanted to make sure we tackle tonight, so we're just going to forego a cooking segment this evening. I want to remind everybody tuning in that Fish on Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Pacific Commons Real Estate, located in Puyallup, Washington, and really appreciate them staying on board through the new year. Barnum? That's it? That's all you got?
That's it. Yeah. Keep sending us money. That's all we care about.
Yeah, we are starting a new year, but you know, we have not quite come up to our first full year at FH. You know, we are about 9 months in.
9 months.
So looking forward to making it to that end of March, early April timeframe where we complete our first year. Things are going along swimmingly, as they say. Swimmingly. We have a lot of things happening, and 2020 is going to be extremely busy. Lots of new things coming about that we're going to be sharing as we move forward. But, you know, I want to remind everybody, if you're tuning in tonight via Facebook, hey, you know what? Take your phone or your electronic device, whatever. Jump over to our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe. Check out a lot of the stuff we post over there as well. Some of it's duplicated, but we do have a lot of content that lives there on our YouTube channel. We're trying to build those numbers. So do us a favor, do us a solid, jump over there and give us a boost on our YouTube channel, if you would, please. We'll sit here for a couple minutes until that happens.
No,
okay, we got too much to cover. Also, be aware, we really appreciate throughout the week, especially the last couple of weeks as we've been on holiday break and whatnot, we've been posting a lot of content.
Yeah.
And man, I tell you what, some of it's really grabbing some folks' attention.
Yeah.
Not always in a good way. We get, you know, some folks kind of chiming in with their frustrations, but
it's 2020, and in the environment we live in nowadays, we're not all going to agree on everything.
Correct.
And the great thing about social media, I don't know if it's great or it's horrible, but when you don't agree, you get to be loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, and then you draw some attention to yourself.
Right.
And people pummel on you, and we're not going to come rescue you.
Right.
We're going to let the folks decide for themselves what direction to steer the conversation. Barnum, we have our own opinions on a lot of this stuff we post, right?
Absolutely.
But we want to hear from you all, and that's the point of this is, you know, we do our show live every Thursday evening here, which is great, and appreciate everybody that tunes in. During the week, we live on our social media. Instagram, find us at Fish Hunt NW on Instagram, at Fish Hunt NW on Facebook, and post your information. A lot of you guys have now started jumping on there, giving us pictures, commenting, giving us messages, making us aware of some other things going on, perhaps where you live, Oregon, Idaho. Got people chiming in from down in California, even over in the Great Lakes area, which is fantastic. Want to continue to be up to speed on all the things you guys are, you know, involved with. What is giving you frustration, whether it's keeping you off the water, out of the woods, as we say. So a lot of that information is valuable, and we all learn by sharing that type of stuff.
And it's a very easy time within our environment, within the Pacific Northwest especially, to be frustrated. Very easily right now can get frustrated. And I don't blame people at all for being frustrated.
Well, a number of reasons, as you say. We don't typically have enough time in each and every show to cover them, but we picked a couple bullet points that seem to be hot buttons, and one of those, well, first of all, we do have a couple guests joining us tonight via phone. We're going to talk with our buddy Matt Messin Around Charters, Blackmouth opener. Yesterday, January 1, Area 10, Area 11 is also open, but depending where you're at and how it's going, you're either finding a few fish or you're struggling a bit.
Right.
Saw some photos out there on social media that would indicate a few folks are finding fish. Not real big, of course. Resident blackmouth aren't your typical large Chinook anyway, if you're not familiar. But we're going to talk with Matt how the first couple days have gone, and got a little weather coming in tomorrow. I think that's going to keep him off the water. Because I'm going to
do that in the weather report a little bit.
It's going to take Tom Ryle. Him and I are going to jump in with Matt tomorrow and go up Area 10. And
remember how we were talking back in October, November? Like, wow, it's been kind of dry.
Yeah.
Fixed it.
Yeah. No longer an issue, right? So if you're complaining about the rain and already tired of it, hang on, because we got more for you. But going to keep us off of the salt for sure. But we'll talk with Matt later on in the show and really kind of break down how it started off the first couple days and what we can look forward to historically on how the winter blackmouth season progresses. And we'll also be checking in with Shelby Ross Outdoors. This oddball winter that we're having.
Yes.
How many days has it hit 50-something degrees?
Too many.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of concerning at this point. Typically by this time of year and even before, Potholes is in a deep freeze.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they'll have 17 inches of ice in and around the docks, right? They're at the, they're at the resort. And no, that's not the case. They had a little freeze over there around the sands and whatnot, and then that's all kind of pulled back. They have 50-degree temperatures over there during the day. Oddly enough, as Mother Nature would have it, you think the ducks, well, it's so warm they're not going to be flying south. No, they're not. They're actually flying north. They actually turned around, and this is a crazy story, but they got ducks coming back up from the south. Which is very
definitely interesting
uncharacteristic, right?
Yeah.
I got a feeling, it is projected that we are going to hit a pretty hard winter here come February.
And it seems like the last couple years, the harshness of the winter has fallen later and later and later.
I can tell you when it hits. Portland sportsmanship.
Right.
That's when we get 12 inches of snow.
Right.
Cars off I-5 everywhere and just, mayhem. So it's warm and it's affecting the duck and goose hunting, but we're going to check in with Shelby. Might talk a little walleye fishing. He hasn't been doing a lot of that lately, but there are some guys out there jigging some blade baits and finding some success. So
man, I want to do that.
I know. We'll check in on that. But before we get there, Barnum, I took the liberty to put up a post. It might have been last week, even the end of last week. It's been up for a few days. There is a piece of land out there at Port Angeles, Morris Creek Unit, 133 acres of the Morris Creek Unit located 3 miles east of Port Angeles, closed until May 31st.
Right. That's
a wilderness access area. Now, for the most part, it's accessible mostly by hikers and persons, bird watching but people getting outdoors, having the opportunity to get off the main beaten path and get off out there 133 acres in some wilderness and enjoy.
Which is nice when you live in a metropolitan area to have something close that you can access.
And you're out there towards, Port Angeles is like, not a major booming city, but there's a lot of wilderness out there and a lot of wildlife and stuff to go observe and enjoy. That's closed off. WDFW closed off the access because of the homeless crisis. The garbage, the toxicity levels of all that is piled up around in the dirt and the garbage and the filth and the human waste and the needles, and just it goes on and on. And this one struck kind of a chord with me because we talked about the homeless issue. We talked in depth about the homeless issue with Lauren Culp here in studio.
Absolutely.
We've talked about some of the problems that is creating, in and around where a lot of us live.
Yes.
In and around where I work.
Yes.
It's a huge deal, not just in the state of Washington, but nationwide. But Washington and Seattle in particular, are just an embarrassment.
It's becoming the epicenter of the homeless crisis.
And how it's being dealt with,
yes.
right? Or I should say the lack thereof.
Right.
Governor Inslee put out a notice 10 days ago, within the last couple of weeks. His plan now is to pull $300 million out of reserve funds and build more tiny homes for the homeless, which is the exact opposite of how you deal with this issue. We're not going to get into that whole political side of it.
Right.
But the bottom line is it's now filtering out of the main suburban areas where we live and getting into wilderness areas. Now, we've seen this going on pretty much any river you go to.
Right.
And I saw this up in Alaska. They got a terrible problem up in Alaska, all along the rivers we were walking to fish.
Wow.
Homeless encampments and tents everywhere, just strewn all along the river. Now, for me, it's always been kind of high on the radar and concerning. One, as sportsmen, fishermen and women, we haven't always done the best job in packing out our garbage.
Absolutely.
There's no denying that.
Absolutely.
But this takes it to another level in that in around areas of boat ramps and, in just up and down the riverbanks, you come walking down to a place you've maybe fished for years, and throughout the woods right there's just a bunch of tents, bicycles piled up, garbage up the gazoo, and, human waste and everything else. We talk about conservation, reestablishing habitat, and even out here in this Morris Creek unit, the habitat destruction secondary to digging in and building shelters, makeshift shelters out of trees and whatnot from the landscape. So basically destroying that landscape, the wilderness, all to secure a shelter. Right. And it's not just like one or two dudes, it's like a bunch. Right. Which is concerning because now you're disrupting wildlife in general. We're not just talking fish and whatnot.
Water flow and how the sediment rolls into the streams, but also the waste that goes along with that as far as the human waste.
And into the waterways.
Right.
And into the wetlands, right? And it's becoming a huge problem, especially along the rivers and whatnot, with the amount of these encampments that continue to blow up. And then when they run all the people out of there, then the states and the cities and the counties, they're the counties and the cities, they got to go in and clean all that stuff up.
Absolutely.
And then they leave it unchecked for a while, and guess what? They come back. And it's just repeating the cycle. And so I don't know what the answer is. I think folks need to start literally just inundating their representatives and our senators to say, enough's enough, we need change. And it starts with this, right?
Absolutely.
And start inundating them with letters and emails to say, this has gone on long enough. The state needs to grab a hold of it. This needs to be a budget item. Right. Not reserve funds. Not, this seems to be getting to a point of maximum capacity now. We should do something. Right. They should have done something 8 years ago.
Yeah, we have to quit enabling. That's the whole thing.
The bottom line.
We enable this, and we just have to quit enabling. And like you said, we're not going to get political about this and go down the rabbit hole of what it is, but we have to at some point quit enabling.
If they're not taking care of it within the inner cities and certain parts of the county, and now it's spilling out into the wilderness areas, enough's enough. Right. Right? We got to start by cleaning up inland here so we can not have so much devastation and destruction in the wilderness area, because we've been working extremely hard, and millions upon millions of dollars are getting spent on habitat restoration. And yet we just turn a blind eye to this habitat degradation. It makes no sense to me. So.
We've done this across all levels of government, whether it's state, local, or county or whatever, but put it in terms that us sportsmen understand. Like, if you want to keep the bears away, you don't put donuts on the back deck every day.
What?
Right? You keep the donuts off the back deck.
Your cabin?
So if you control the environment with you don't welcome them, then they won't all show up. Yeah. That's how it works.
And other persons in other cities won't be putting bears on buses and sending them to Seattle. Right. That is not going to happen. They're going to find out there's no donuts in Seattle, so they're going to quit putting bears on buses out of Arizona. Just do the simple math, right? So, hey, everybody's chiming in here. Happy New Year, guys. Yeah, appreciate everybody jumping on here. Yes. The new title for this is addresslessness.
Addresslessness?
Yeah, they're not homeless, they're addresslessness.
Oh,
gotcha. Okay.
They need their own title.
Yeah, addresslessness. That's kinder, gentler. Hey, let's jump to something a little more relevant to what it is we like to talk about, fishing and hunting. Right. And as we talked before the show, it's not new news, but it's relevant news.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of time of year. We are, believe it or not, even though we have rivers closed down and the rivers that are performing are not performing very well, and I have some concerns about some of the forecasts now that I'm getting from fishery managers and bios. on the status of some of our wild runs out here in the intercoast and out on the coast.
Right.
There is some concern on our wild fish, so it's a balancing act of, you know, we are projecting to come in below escapement on certain runs of wild fish. How do we conduct a fishery?
Right.
You know, and how do we conduct a fishery knowing there is release mortality among sportsmen, but the bigger trigger and the bigger at fault here is the gill net fisheries being conducted.
Right.
Because we get to fish, they get to fish, we're under escapement, we're going to have a very small 10% or less mortality rate on hook and release on wild fish, but fish and gill nets are dead fish.
Right.
And can we actually justify conducting fisheries, allowing, you know, the co-managers to conduct theirs, knowing they're taking actual dead fish out of the equation? So it's sensitive conversations that they're having. I am not projecting like we're going to see closures coming, but some of the numbers are extremely concerning.
Yeah.
We're going to probably get into more of that next week. I have some phone call meetings with certain folks that have their thumb on this stuff.
Good.
And it is not it's not looking good. So, but to flip that over and recognize success stories, if you've been paying attention, between 2017 and 2019, there's been a lot of information in the wildlife or, you know, fisheries news about the success of culling sea lions out of the Willamette Falls area,
right.
Oregon City. Now, understand that the pinniped predation issue is ongoing, and it's like throughout. Mm-hmm. Everywhere.
Yeah, up and down the entire stream. And every estuary in Washington State, Oregon, and California.
Yeah.
Right.
This used to be like, you know, little pockets you would find, but
right.
They already know the Salur Sea is absolutely overwhelmed with, you know, 3 different species of pinniped. But primarily these California sea lions, and in some cases the stellar sea lions, are having a devastating effect on certain runs of fish.
Absolutely.
In the Willamette Falls area, and so you introduce a man-made barrier.
Yep.
That hold fish in check for a certain amount of time. It didn't take the sea lions very long to figure out, hey, all we got to do is swim up into this pool and we're just going to gorge on them, right?
Right.
So they did that to the point of, in 2017, they documented 822 wild steelhead successfully navigated the falls and were successful reaching the upper spawning ground. Mm-hmm. They then enacted and moved forward with a plan to remove sea lions, lethal removal, capture and lethally, you know, exterminate them. With a lot of resistance and a lot of folks, you know, trying to get in the way of that. But they figured it's time to start getting aggressive on this stuff, so they did. Barnum, we kind of kept up on that, reporting on the number of sea lions that they were removing.
Right, and early in it, we were seeing a substantial increase in the numbers.
Yeah, as far as fish, right?
Yes.
So as it turns out, when it's all said and done, towards the tail end of 2018 and in through 19 to the last one that was removed and euthanized, 33 sea lions were taken out of that area, which had a direct effect on that 2018-2019 return to the tune of 3,202 fish.
Wow.
From 822 to 3,202.
Right.
Okay. That's
so
a tremendous
300 to 400% increase.
Absolutely.
Right.
The other interesting read on that, if you take time to read the information we posted on our Facebook page, it went from a 89% probability the run would be extinct within the next couple of years to an 11% probability.
Wow.
Okay. It dropped it by 78%.
Yeah.
Right? That the probability of extinction is clear down to 11% based on that bumper year of 3,200 fish. The reason we bring this up is because there's a lot of controversy surrounding removal of sea lions, when in fact, here is a perfect example of a small sampling that cause and effect. You take out those ones that are at the main feeding table.
Right.
And you had a tremendous positive impact on the return of fish.
Absolutely.
It wasn't removing hatchery fish out of the system.
No.
It wasn't any additional habitat restoration.
Nope.
It wasn't a change in the ability of the fish to navigate past the dam to get them to the upper spawning ground. It was removing an aggressive, overweight predator.
Right.
And they continue to wreak havoc.
Small amount of those predators, about 100 short of probably what they should have done.
Yeah.
You know, and like we talked about before the last time we discussed this, it's time to celebrate the recovery that was the sea lion on the west coast.
Sure.
It's an amazing recovery, one of the true amazing endangered species recoveries we've ever seen. It's time to celebrate that and roll it over and begin management.
You need somebody to step in and go, here is the carrying capacity and the number we're comfortable with.
Right.
Whatever that number was in 1972 when the Federal Mammal Protection Act was enacted and they were ESA protected federally, whatever that number was, I never have heard anybody say, when we get to this point, we're good.
That's I've never heard that talked about.
Never been established.
And this is something that we've talked about throughout the line and you're seeing the effect of it now, where we talked before about you're producing these hatchery fish to go out and it becomes a major food source for this giant population of predator.
Yeah.
And now we've began to curb hatchery production. And so now what have those predators done? They've turned on the last few fish that remain, which we're trying to protect these native fish runs, these wild fish runs. And unfortunately, we're not putting a buffer of hatchery fish around them anymore. So they're going to eat fish. They don't care if it has a fin or not.
No,
like they don't check.
Oh, hey, Chuck, don't eat that one. You got a fin, right? It doesn't work that way.
So now we're seeing with decreased hatchery production, more predation on wild fish.
Or just what fish are available.
Yes.
And they just happen to be wild fish.
Yes.
They've known, I believe, and somebody may correct me here, I believe it was 2016, they documented, I've read reports that vary. 20%, upwards of 45% of the spring Chinook run that year, they know were consumed by sea lions.
Right.
We're talking from the mouth of the Columbia to Bonneville Dam.
Right.
45% of the run is decimated.
So think about that, because we also know that we talked about 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, that 70% of released smolt are eaten by avian predators.
Yep.
And so of those that make it to the ocean and actually survive the ocean and want to return, half of those are eaten by
sea lions.
Sea lions. And then you wonder why we have no fish.
Well, and then they continue to cut back on hatchery programs to bring back our wild fish. And you're exactly right. It's like this stuff going up on North Puget Sound, all these tremendous cutbacks on our hatchery plants. We went over the numbers a couple weeks ago. I believe my average was 440 fish, steelhead, returning to each river. Actually, I got a phone call from a friend today. We were talking about some other steelhead management stuff, and he said, oh, by the way, I checked up their reader today via phone call. 4 fish at the hatchery. 4 fish at the reader ponds or the hatchery there on the sky. That is concerning.
Well, let me go on record in saying, cutting hatchery production is not going to save wild fish. It is going to have the opposite effect. The predators are going to eat, whether they're hatchery or wild. So the more fish you can buffer around those wild fish to feed the predator population that we have, until we decide to manage predator populations, cutting hatchery production is not going to save wild fish.
There's a point, though. And this is where I'm devil's advocate. You can pump millions of smolt out hoping to get a decent return on adults. If we are successful in increasing our return percentage, albeit for them to simply get intercepted by pinnipeds, overwhelming population of pinnipeds, we're feeding the monster.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Stronger survivability, healthier cows or mothers. Next thing you know, they're birthing pups. Plenty of milk, they're surviving, higher survivability.
Right, we've talked about that.
So
the predator-prey relationship and the curve.
So they have to decide, do you want to feed them wild fish? No, we're going to start, and thank God for orca, because we are seeing a huge influx of output of our Chinook smolt.
Right.
But we need to get back to these hatchery programs relative to steelhead. They also need to decide Chambers Creek fish early to give us that early opportunity, 6 to 8 pound fish starting Thanksgiving through December, which does not exist this year, and then roll that into more of a focused broodstock in-basin program for that January through April fish return, which is truly your wild fish, bigger fish within basin broodstocking. And some of those programs are going to start taking off here in not too far, but we're kind of caught in a limbo here because they haven't really decided, do we completely stop Chambers Creek production? And just basically you're going to find that there's no steelhead fish in November, December. There's none.
Right.
And we're lucky if we start seeing fish showing up here in January. About mid-January, we should start seeing a good influx of more wild fish.
Right.
We'll have to see if we're going to have time for that. But the fact is, the footprint that's been established in the Willamette at the falls kind of sets the table.
It does. And that's where we're in a tough spot, because when things like this go on and we see the success of it and we see that it works, we have to ask ourselves, Is this a management tool that we can use in this day and age? Like, we would love it to be, but in this day and age, would this be a management tool that would be accepted throughout the state? Right. And we know that for the first time in human history, and the first time maybe in natural history, we have a weird predator-prey relationship here where we have artificially inflated the population of prey for predators. Right. And now we have booming predator populations, and unless we deal with those predator populations, whether we quit producing prey and starve them out, or we take an active management and start harvesting the predators, how do we fix it? And I'm not sure how, because the user base, us, the fishermen, are the ones that are going to suffer if we decide to starve them out.
I'm very curious if we would think back historically, like at the turn of the century when commercial harvest was just off the charts. Right. They got into the early 1900s and they decided, hey, we got to start building hatcheries to supplement the fish, because we are harvesting a ton of fish, millions upon millions of pounds. Then they start, then the dams come in, the obstructions in the Columbia system are established. The hatcheries are just full tilt, pumping out as many fish as they can get. How many sea lions did we have in the Columbia?
I don't know.
I think none.
Right.
They're in California. California sea lion, right? Go to the sea lion caves in California, Highway 101, I think it is down there. Drive on through and hey, look at the seals and wave at them.
That would be a very interesting conversation. Maybe if we could find somebody that was a sea lion historian that knows the lifespan of the sea lion as far as in America.
What do you do? I'm a sea lion historian.
Right, and talk to them and understand at what point of history compared to what we've done as man to
when
the salmon
did the migration happen, right? When did they start moving up the coast? And when they started seeing an influx of them along Oregon? When did they actually land in the Columbia? I'm not talking just a few. Right. I mean, let's face it, the dams were in place, the hatcheries were at max production. Right. We had an abundance of hatchery fish to keep up with commercial recreational demand, 50s, 60s, 70s. Things were robust. Yeah. I'm curious as to how many sea lions were in and around at that time, because if they weren't here, then why have we let them build to the numbers they are at now and think that it's just natural? Right. It's not natural. Right. There's such an imbalance, and we're fighting an uphill battle until they start making draw the hard line. I mean, I like to watch a seal balance a bull on his nose as much as any kid, right? Well, not really, but it's time. It's like you mentioned the bird information. We talked about that a few weeks ago. 11 years of research, data, and study to understand we're losing 70% of our steelhead out-migrating smolt from the Snake River down to the mouth of Columbia, 70% due to bird predation. 11-year study. Okay, we know what's going on. What's next in the process? Right. Right? I know we had some areas where they were oiling eggs and crushing eggs and doing whatever. They also made it to where birds moved off of one island and preferably nested on another. But it's time to get a little more aggressive, I think. I agree. Is there a downside to expanding waterfowl hunters' limit for the day? You get your 7 ducks. You also get your 2 bonus mergansers or cormorants. Right. Yeah.
Well, I don't think, and I made the comment of starving them out, and I don't think that's even a realistic, plausible idea because of the fact that you're going to extinct all your wild runs if you try to starve them out. Sure. They are going to eat fish, whether you plant them and put them out there or not. So starving them out is not an option.
No, it's just like the seals. They're going to find whatever
They're going to find whatever fish are there to eat. Yep. And they're going to stack up at the dams, and they're going to eat whatever fish are there. So, it's time. It's got to happen. I just don't know in this day and age if a full-on sea lion harvest is in our future. Man, I see that tied up in litigation for years.
I'm waiting for Canada and First Nation to set the stage on that, because there's talks and there's articles you can research that they've already have in place markets in Asia that can consume and utilize every part of the sea lion.
Oh, for sure.
Right? For sure. Nothing goes to waste. Right. It actually turns into a profitable business. You establish jobs. You're helping manage predator-prey relationships, and you're actually working on conservation from the side of removing an abundance of mammals that have no business being to the levels of
we have to continue to look at wildlife as long as our natural resources as renewable resources. Correct. And we as humans, being the stewards that we are, not only need to manage those, but use that renewable resource. So that's what God put them here for, is for us to use them.
I'm curious as to what happens up north. If that sets the tone, I think hopefully we can see things follow. And you know, this is another one of those where you get a hold of your representatives and your congressmen and women and say, hey, you know, we want to see action on this thing. Where does your understanding on the sea lion population, what are you willing to do about it in legislature this year?
Right. It might be time to really push your lawmakers about carrying capacity of sea lions and ask them where the science is on the carrying capacity of sea lions.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, we always want to go by science. Where is the science?
All right. See that dead horse out in the middle of the floor?
We beat it to death.
That thing has died 6 times.
We do it every week.
I know. We get on a tirade. Apologize for that. Plenty of folks chiming in here. We're going to catch up on a lot of these comments here at the break. Before we jump out, I want to remind you all, hey, Sportsman Show is coming up. You'll see our ads running on our Facebook page, and soon here in studio, we are definitely going to be busy at the Sportsman Show.
Yeah.
First of all, Puyallup, then we'll make our way down to the Portland Show at the Expo Hall. But I want to remind everybody, we'll have our booth set up. We'll be actually in the Expo Hall at the Sportsman Show in Puyallup, so don't look for us in the main fishing building. Unfortunately, you got to walk down to the far end, grab a scone on the way, come say hi. We're going to have our booth there. We're going to be selling all our wares, our hats, our goods, and just basically introducing you to the show and saying hi. And of course, Thursday night that week, we are putting the show on live. That'll be the 23rd. January 23rd, Puyallup Sportsman Show in the Expo Hall, 6 p.m. So we can make sure to get in a 2-hour show. Gonna have a great show lined up. We're working with the marketing folks there through the Lachlan Group, and we are going to be premiering some of their keynote speakers and presenters that are there at the show for the weekend. So you want to make sure you come in and say hi to those folks, and you know, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a great event.
Live studio audience. You can heckle us, do whatever you want.
Throw stuff at us. We don't care. So speaking of which, heckling, later on in the show, hey, we are opening up the phone lines. Very curious as to what some of you folks are thinking. We get questions all the time. Hey, would you guys ever take phone calls? We're like, yeah, okay, so...
Horrible idea, David.
Terrible idea, but yeah. David said we're going to do it, so we're going to do it. We'll put this number up a few times. 253-329-4391 is going to be the phone number. Don't call right now, but later on in the show here, we're going to open up the phone lines, and I had posted up pictures earlier, Barnum. Got some great prize packs we're going to be giving away for those that do take the time to call in. So we're willing to talk about any of all this stuff that we continue to cover here on FHN.
Right.
I mean, let's stay off the sea lion topic for the rest of the evening, unless you have a burning question that you need answered. Maybe Barnum can throw that back at you. But I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on out there. Some of it good, some of it bad. Let's pick your topic, see what you want to discuss. We'll do that later in the show. But before we get there, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to have our buddy Shelby Ross on the phone. Ross Outdoors, going to talk a little duck and goose hunting, some walleye fishing, find out what's going on over there at Potholes, and exactly how warm the temperatures are. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay, we'll do all that when we come back right here on FHN.
At metal supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, metal supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Hey, welcome back, Fish on Northwest. Wayne and Kelly Barnum in studio here. No in-studio guests tonight, Barnum.
Nope.
Couldn't get anybody to jump in and join us this year.
No, tired of us.
Yeah. But we do, however, have plenty of friends via the phone. That one being Mr. Shelby Ross from Ross Outdoors is taking a little time out of his vacation travels this week through the new year. And want to talk a little duck and goose hunting with Shelby. How you doing, buddy? You got you there?
Dwayne, I am great. It's great to be on.
Yeah, man. Good to hear from you. I know you guys are out on the road a little bit, traveling, having a little relaxed time. But before you got out of town, of course, you were busy as ever, continuing to get folks out in the duck blinds and get some goose hunts in and whatnot. Let's break it down for us. Let's kind of back up, Shelby, if we could. Talk about the start of the season, like early on when I was over there with you, and how things either have materialized and then kind of maybe pulled back a bit, or just kind of the ebb and flow of how this hunting season's gone for you.
So we've had 4 different influxes of new birds, so to speak. The latest is old birds that have gone south of us and now have returned with big south winds and 55-degree temperatures. And it's just been a roller coaster ride. And our early season was interesting that we had more mallards than normal, but our teal and widgeon that normally make up a huge chunk of our harvest, but a ton of those birds were already gone south at the start of our opener. And that's just, some years the weatherman can kind of kick you, and that happened the previous year as well, because 2 years ago, right before the opener, we had more teal than I've ever seen. And we had the quote-unquote storm of the century the day before hunting season, and all those teal were gone.
Do you think that early movement this year, that was probably a factor of that late September cold front that we had that dropped a little snow, on the east side and up north, and you think that drove those birds to move early?
Absolutely, and any kind of a cold front, those teal start moving, and a big north wind just helps them on their voyage, and
right.
So some years they're gone before we have a chance at them, and it's just part of the deal.
The cold tried to make a showing, and then we've basically, what are you guys averaging over there? Mid-40s, you think, throughout the day for the last 3 weeks or better?
Oh, it was 55 yesterday.
That was unbelievable. It's funny.
Blowing out of the south at 30, and our ice is 99% gone.
Wow.
But we just had a rainstorm right before dark, and until just about an hour ago, it raining like it was over in your neck of the woods, and it's 35 now, and it's cleared off, but it's still blowing out of the south. And the old timers here forever have said, south wind means the ducks are coming. North wind means the birds are leaving. It's like, now, wait a minute.
Right.
They've got to come from the north.
Right.
But I've been doing this 20-some years, and they're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. How's it affecting the goose hunting?
We've had pretty good goose hunting through the weekend, but with the New Year's, Moses Lake apparently had quite a New Year's celebration, and my brother, as well as another guide, said you could hear geese flying around Moses Lake from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m., where they're just spooked by all the fireworks. And so I suspect a lot of those geese have vamoosed to quieter areas. And scouting today, there's geese everywhere, but not in huntable numbers.
How do you see the weather in the short term, let's say the next 2 weeks, affecting the hunting over in your neck of the woods?
Well, based on my tour of the reservoir today, our duck hunting is going to be just fine. And our goose hunting, unless something changes dramatically, our goose hunting is going to be really tough, and a ton of our customers will become duck hunters, or they'll reschedule.
Right.
Well, they won't have much time to reschedule. I mean, we got 4 weeks left, right? So, and you only got 3 days a week to be able to get those goose hunts in. Are you maxed out on those schedules, or you got some flexibility?
We've got a few random goose openings left, and my schedule's a little bit hampered by show season with the pre-alp show the last week of the season.
Yeah.
And I'll be there at the show Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then back here to hunt Saturday, Sunday for the last 2 days. Then we've got a February season too for the snow geese. And so that's kind of an unknown because we've never had one before. So that'll be kind of fun. And we've also got the February, the first Saturday in February for youth and veterans, I believe.
Oh, for geese?
That'll be a neat hunt.
Yeah.
For geese and ducks.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it seems like the February and March time period, that's when Mother Nature has decided the last few years that winter needs to exist
here. Winter shows up.
Yeah. So, I mean, the February hunts could be interesting.
Those could be good. Those could be good for you. Let's talk about that snow goose hunt. Shelby, you guys, is that, I didn't look, and I don't think I asked you the other day, is that open for them over there right now if you got some showing up?
Yeah, no, we definitely have lots of snow geese in the area, and I have not jumped into the snow goose deal like some of the other outfitters have. I've kind of taken this wait-and-see attitude, and one of my new guys has got, 4 or 6 snow geese, and he's been using them, and it seems like they work as a target to our dark geese. They're so visible. It's like they hone in on those couple white decoys, and here on Monday, we had a field with 300 or 400 Canadians in it and a few flocks of snows, but not anything to get excited about. And they end up with half a dozen Canadian geese and 18 or 19 snows. So,
and did you say like 4? He puts out 4 snow goose decoys?
Yes.
And he got 18.
Yes.
And our buddy Aaron Peterson up north puts out 1,500 snow goose decoy, bags on steel rods.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and they're getting it done over there in Moses Lake with 4. It's like, hey, Aaron, if you're tuning in, you only need 4 or 5 decoys. 1,500.
Well, and maybe it's like any other setup in waterfowl hunting. They look at the same set every single day and know the gig, and if it's different, sometimes it works.
Yeah,
sure,
that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I had looked at weather a couple weeks ago. I haven't looked at the long-range forecast. Have you looked to see, do we have some colder temps moving in finally if we get that north wind to switch around and start blowing down?
We have a few days of just below freezing temps. Otherwise, we're going to stay right here with low 30s for a low and 40s for a high. And if you're a duck hunter, that's great. If you're a goose hunter, it's less than fantastic.
Right.
How much water are they flowing into the lake? Is it low or is it at normal levels?
No, it's normal. We're probably still 3.5, 4 foot below full pool, and so it's navigation is not an issue. And our ice, half of our sand dunes were frozen, and now it's about 95% open, and most of the little water in the basin is open as well. And so there's random ducks on every little farm pond and canal across the basin.
Right. How's the overall hunting pressure been?
We've had some influxes of more people with the mild weather. And when there's no snow in the pass and, it's 50 degrees here, people say, well, hey, let's do it, even though we don't normally go this time of year.
Yeah.
And so there's been, there's been a few weekends of more people than normal, but, normally by this time of year, there's only a few places you can hunt because of the ice, and we don't have that. We've got lots of room.
Right.
So that's less of an issue. It doesn't seem as crowded as it would be if we had 3/4 of the sand dunes froze and you could only hunt right along the face of the dunes.
Huh. So with all that open water, let's talk a little walleye fishing.
Yeah.
I know you hadn't, you've been pretty busy hunting, but there have been a few guys getting out after walleye. How's walleye fishing? What's the water temp? Is it a blade bait and jigging show, or is it a troll thing right now?
No, it is, I would say 95% a blade bait and jigging show. There's a few random people that are trolling, but they're going super, super slow. They're catching a few fish still trolling, but they might as well be jigging as slow as they're going.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some fish being caught, and there was 4 or 5 boats out today, and the wind was probably 20 plus, so they're diehards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, once them whitecaps start rolling out there, it gets a little dicey to be out there even trying to troll.
Right, so it makes you think there's definitely some fish being caught if you're challenging those conditions to keep
quite
fishing.
Possibly, or even some big perch, right? So you got plenty of room for folks to get a hold of you, Shelby, if they want to try to squeak in that duck hunt before the end of season here in a few weeks?
Yeah, we've got a few weekend days that are full, a couple Saturdays. Other than that, we've got openings, and we've got space with, like I say, with the ice going away. So give a yell. We can put her together.
All right. Throw a number out there for us so folks can get a hold of you.
So to book a trip, they'll call Mardon Resort at 509-346-2651.
2651. Okay. Fantastic. Always a pleasure, my friend. If I can fit it in before the end of year, I may have to make a drive to the east side and at least try to come blast something. I might wait till the cold weather sets in, though, so next time you see me, and maybe at the Puyallup Sportsman show. So
we'll see you there anyway.
Yeah, yeah, guaranteed. So always a good time. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Shelby Ross, Ross Outdoors, phenomenal operation they got going over there. You basically call Mardon, book your trip, align yourself with the duck taxi. They take you out on the boat, put you in the blind, serves you hot coffee. Those duck kebabs are, just so well known with this operation that they put together over there. He makes so many of them. You literally just get full on duck kebab poppers all morning. If you want to drink a little glass of red wine with those, that's there too. And it's just it's a very relaxing, enjoyable time. Meet up with some like-minded folks that want to get out and do a hunt. You can bring your dog if you want. You can work it out with Shelby. You can either do a guided trip. They'll set up the blind and the decoy spread and everything for you. You can bring your dog and your guns and your buddies. They just drop you off in the boat and let you do it yourself. So self-guided on their setup, which is extremely convenient because you literally show up, get dropped off, hunt, call them when you're done. They come pick you up. Great way to spend a morning into afternoon. It's a really good time. So, all right, Barnum, we are going to jump out for a break. We come back. We're going to hit a weather report with you, which is kind of interesting. No ice or snow in the forecast, but we'll hit a weather forecast, and then phone lines are open. Got some great prize packs we're going to give away. So if you're going to call 253-329-4391, David has put it out both on Facebook and YouTube. I'm thinking, sure did. And so find that number, call them up, and we'll get you on air here, and we'll have a discussion on some things. You guys, if you got questions for Barnum, how long is he going to let his hair keep growing? When's his baseball season start? I mean, whatever it is, right? I
didn't cut it in 2019, and 2020 is not looking good either.
Oh, that is not. You said that right. That is not looking good. It's probably a squirrel in there too. Somewhere.
No, pack rat.
Oh, pack rat.
That's what we decided.
Okay, we'll jump out for a quick break. We come back. We'll hit a good weather report for you guys, and then the phone lines are open. So don't go anywhere. Stick around. We'll be back right here on FHN.
At Metals Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
Welcome back to FHN. If you were just watching through the commercial break there, you saw the new and revived Sportsman show ad, Barnum. It looks pretty exciting. They got, one thing we try to let folks know, and trust me on this one, it's not the same old Sportsman show. They're working very hard through their media folks to try and generate new, relevant content, presenters, things that people want to see. The cooking competitions are huge. People love that stuff. Right. It's a cooking competition every single day down there, plus all the other seminars and things that you can see. We'd be doing seminars, but we don't have time. Yeah. So,
no, the Sportsman show's always a good time. I mean, I hear a lot of people go, well, it's the same old stuff, but it's always a good time. You get to see people that you haven't seen all year. Like, it's, get the wife and kids out and go have an enjoy a day at the Sportsman show.
It's always fun. Scones, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, you kidding me? We'll have scones at the booth, trust me. We will. We'll be giving them out. Lots of good insight here. Appreciate you guys jumping on. JJ, with some of the percentages of loss in where some of those documents come from, some of the same articles I had read in the past. Right. One that caught me off guard I was not aware of, back in the 1920s, a gentleman by the last name of Hunter, of all things, was hired to exterminate sea lions. In the 20s. He was to call up to 2,500. Right. They gave him a couple months. He did it in, what did it say?
A few days.
A few days.
Right. We're going to dig into that and see if we can find what we can find out about that.
I'm curious what the population of sea lions were back then. Obviously, the rivers were teeming with fish in the 20s. I mean, stuff full. We're talking 100-pound Chinook.
This is where we need that sea lion historian.
See?
There's a guy or a gal out there.
There's a sea lion historian, right? Talking about the migration and all those great things. So, just interesting information. You guys keep putting that stuff up there because we can't find it all. And when we do get bits of info like that, I start digging to find out exactly what all that stuff is. So, Barnum, weather report. We got some changes coming. We got a little rain out there the last couple of days.
All it does is rain around these parts.
Yeah,
let's throw this up, and this is our 10 days. So this is looking at today, right here where my mouse cursor is, if you guys can see that. And we saw a lot of heavy rain up north and kind of showery weather down here in the southwest Washington and up through the mountain passes and even in northern Oregon. But as we look at Friday, we see that heavy rain start to return, and I mean, that's going to be kind of the theme as we roll along. I mean, the coast, the whole west side is going to be we're getting hit with rain Sunday. We're going to get it Monday. We're going to get it Tuesday. Like, we're going to keep rolling with that. And as we look at these forecasted high temperatures, we see the same thing. As we look at Friday, very mild temperatures all the way across, except for if you get up here in kind of the southern Canada area and the high mountaintops here, like on Saturday, you're going to get down in the 20s. But other than that, all the way across the state, you're seeing abnormally mild temperatures in the 40s and even 50s. Like, I mean, this weather pattern is holding for quite a while, and that's not going to change a whole lot. So as we kind of look forward and we look at some of our river conditions as we saw that rain moving in, you can see here is we had this big push of rain the last couple days and the river took a quick rise, but as of the day it's starting to drop. And this is the Wainuchi here near Montesano, and it looks like this weekend, as far as water levels, that's going to be fishable. So it looks like the river's going to be on the drop, and then it's going to kind of maintain itself with a little spike up middle in the week. As we look down on the Oregon coast, I just pulled up the Silets here, and you see the same thing there. It's going to come down, and it's going to be, looks like it's going to be fairly fishable going into the weekend. So those don't look too bad for the weekend, really. I know we got that Blackmouth opener, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys what we're dealing with these fronts where we kind of have this jet stream that's pointed directly at us, like they say, the atmospheric river, you know. And so you look out across your ocean conditions here across the Westport area, and every day you're looking at southwest winds 30 to 40 knots, 25 to 35 knots, 20 to 30 knots, 20 to 25. So if we take that over here to the Blackmouth side, that doesn't change. You know, Saturday, 20 to 30 knots, wind waves 3 to 5 feet. Sunday, 15 to 25 knots, wind waves 2 to 4 feet.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow you're looking at 20 to 30 knots, wind waves 4 to 6 feet.
I'm thinking Matt's not fishing tomorrow.
Right. So, I mean, we'll
talk to him later on, but I'm pretty sure that's a no-go.
Right. So that's going to be the trend all the way across the weekend. So, I mean, if I'm going to summarize this, you're looking at wet, mild weather, gusty winds, not great unless you're a duck.
Not great unless you're a duck.
Right.
Lots of people chiming in here. Barnum, nice job on the weather. It's helpful for folks to make weekend plans. Crabbing is happening too, but not worth going out.
Not great unless you're a duck.
Not great unless you're a duck. Let's see. Josh, you wanted us to give, your son Logan Deegan. Get a little shout out for Logan. Don't know how old he is, but wanted us to
How
say,
you doing, Logan?
How you doing, Logan? Good. Nice for you to be tuning in. Hopefully you are learning something. All right, phone line's open.
Got that number again?
Yeah, I do. 253-329-4391. David's ready to answer it if, in fact, we do get a call. If we don't, we got plenty of stuff to talk about. But, we are...
we got some good prize packs for the guys that do call in. As long as you're not calling us names. If you're calling us names, there's no way you're getting a prize pack.
You're not getting nothing. So if nobody's going to call in, Barnum, I did post up a... actually, I saw Tom Ryle had grabbed this story as well and put it out there. And it was interesting because this last week we did have a few bits of folks jumping in on some of the information we put out with the wolves.
Right.
And if we put stuff up and it gets a little controversial, well, that's just because we're talking about wolves.
Yeah,
it
right.
Tends to go that way.
Right.
You either are understanding and in line with the management program or the management plan. You either don't understand it and just think all wolves should be killed. Right. And you are frustrated as a hunter because you can see how much they're decimating the areas that you like to hunt. Right. Any and all of those I will agree with. It's just a matter of if you truly understand the management plan, I guess fortunately, unfortunately, it's not going away. It's not. And they have a goal of what it needs to look like. And that's why we went through the opportunity to have Julia Smith in studio with us several months ago, break down the plan A to Z. If you haven't seen that entire show, you don't have to watch the entire show. I broke the 3 key segments with her out into 3 standalone segments that you can find on our Facebook page under videos, or go to our YouTube channel, look through segments, and you'll find they're pretty easy to identify. The cover piece on that has the picture of a wolf, says parts 1, 2, and 3. If you really want to understand what the wolf management plan is all about, listen to her speak on behalf of her job appointed as the wolf manager, and get an understanding of that plan. And
that conversation is about the plan, the steps that have to be, the milestones we need to reach, and the steps that will be taken at each milestone. It doesn't matter if you're pro-wolf, anti-wolf, it doesn't matter. This is the plan, and these are the milestones and steps we have to take to enact the plan.
And it's frustrating to a lot of folks. We get that because of the impact the wolves are having in certain regions of our state.
We have a caller, Dwayne.
Oh, we do?
We do.
What? Oh. Welcome to the show. What's your name? I got nothing.
Got him on there?
You got him on, Dave?
Can you hear us?
No, you can't.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Anybody there? Who is it?
What?
Yeah, you ordering a pizza, or what are you calling for? Who is this? What's your name?
This is Eric.
Eric. Thanks for calling FHN. What can we do for you?
I just wanted to talk about some shotgun shells.
Okay. Shotgun shells, all right.
Yeah, I was wondering with the coming into the new metals for shotgun shells, what the best ones were with bismuth and tungsten.
Well, I think when it comes to the shotgun, I know that we're going to, a lot of the hunting is moving along the lines of steel shot. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to use lead. And I think a lot of it depends on the shotgun you're using, the choke you're using, and the type of bird you're hunting, whether you're hunting turkeys or whether you're hunting ducks, and the range you expect to be shooting. I mean, there's so many variables that go into patterning a shotgun specifically for the game that you're going to hunt.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I should have prefaced that. I was thinking more for duck hunting.
Okay.
And the moving away from just the regular steel shot and the density of the different metals and whether it's worth the price to go with those.
Some of the newer metals they're coming out with, as you kind of mentioned there, we're getting into the tungstens and whatnot, have been proven to shoot very efficiently. They pack a punch. The patterns are tight out for extended numbers of yards compared to your steel shot. They're more forgiving on the inside of your barrels for modern guns and modern barrels for the carnage that some of that steel shot can put on your gun. As far as just hearing, reading, and listening to folks who have tried some of these newer, higher velocity and different types of metals in these shotgun shells, they're happy with the success. I think probably, and you're right, they are a bit more expensive, but in most cases, I'm hearing overwhelmingly the payoff is well worth the price, simply because, for one, you're reaching out a bit further, especially when you're hunting ducks. It just has the ability to stay tighter longer, and guys are pretty impressed. There's a few companies out there, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the recent article I read, but they definitely are making a difference. And if you're thinking of giving them a try, I mean, you won't know until you try them. Go see what kind of pattern it throws out against the target at your shooting range. See how, if you're 30, 40, 50 yards back, see how tight your pattern is, if you're running a full choke or whatever choke you choose, and see if that doesn't make a difference in the performance. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, good question, Eric. A lot of options out there to choose from. You gotta maybe pay a few extra bucks and then go see how that works for you.
Right. I want to say bite the bullet, but maybe bite the shell.
Yeah.
And just
and
buy a box and throw it in the gun and pattern it out and see if it seems to be acting better than the traditional rounds you've been using.
Yep. So hey, we definitely have some hats and stickers and decals and some hunting videos from Titan Outdoors and whatnot to give away, and we got some fishing jigs. I got a little price pack we're willing to hand out, and so get off the phone here, David, to get your information, and we'll send you that stuff on out. Sound good?
Sound good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right. You too.
All right. David, just have to text him or something, get his info later on, and we'll make sure we ship that out to him. Appreciate that. Awesome. Eric, thanks for calling.
See how easy it is? You call in, you get a price pack.
Yeah. And,
I mean, if I'm sitting at home right now watching this, I'm like, wow, a 3-minute phone call is going to get me, what, $40, $50 worth of gear?
That was an interesting question, because I literally was reading an article on that like 2 days ago.
Right.
I just happened random scrolling along, and I'm like, oh, look at this new higher velocity. And, again, everybody's talking about how these newer types of metal composites and just what they're mixing into these things is making a major. I haven't changed. I'm still shooting steel out of the old Mossberg, but, it might be something to look at. If you duck hunt a lot, which I don't. Our buddy Owen Hayes down south, that guy, that's all he does.
Oh, right.
And he is the aficionado. Might try to drag his carcass up here at some point.
That'd be nice.
Spend a whole show talking duck hunting. That would make his day. 2 hours talking duck hunting, Owen, he would probably pass out.
Right.
So anyway. All right, back to the wolf thing, unless we get another call there, David. All right. So Barnum, there's basically a pending lawsuit. Yep. WDFW had... basically, they've released an article here that was December 30th. WDFW moves to dismiss claims by wolf advocates.
Right.
So you have a lawsuit. And the first thing, much like you, is when I read this, I thought, oh, here's another one of them out-of-state, East Coast conservation groups that we've talked about in the past that are weighing in on how we're managing our wolves here in Washington. They have a dislike for the management practices within our state, even though they reside halfway across the country.
Right.
And I really assumed that that's where this was going. I was very surprised to find out that, well, first of all, this is not the same suit and group that was settled here, halfway settled in Thurston County.
Right.
This one is being heard here, I think, this coming Friday, tomorrow, in King County. And it's the lawsuit is brought to you by the Diamond M Ranch on Forest Service allotments in Ferry County. And it also is, retired Seattle construction manager John Huskinson's King County Elementary teacher, and also the Kettle Range Conservation Group. Right. And I was not familiar with the Kettle Range Conservation Group. Now, there are many conservation groups out there.
all over the place.
We had Chase Cannell in here for Conservation Northwest. They got a lot of really good stuff going on. We support a lot of the stuff they're doing. We could talk for a long time about the underpasses, overpasses, what they're doing for ungulate populations. A lot of the fisheries are trying to enhance habitat. The money's being spent. The organizations that align themselves with Conservation Northwest, all really good stuff. I went to the website of the Kettle Range. And first thing that caught my attention is it is bullet point article after article after article on the wolves.
Right.
I mean, it's just their whole front page is just all wolves.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so I start reading some of this stuff, and am I confused, or I'm trying to understand.
It's very one-sided. It's very one-sided when you go through their website. It's not a mixture of balance and management. It is definitely a pro-wolf agenda.
One agenda.
Yes.
Which I alluded to in the posting to remind folks that the wolf management plan was developed and agreed to and implemented based on a committee that was formed that involved, as we've stated before, WDFW staff, ranchers, hunters, conservationists, and wolf advocates.
Right.
Everybody had a stake at the table, right?
Absolutely.
This thing wasn't just hunters and ranchers developed this multi-page document, submitted it to WDFW, and they go, hey, that sounds good. Yeah, let's kill them.
Right. And it's not like the people that are in this advisory group were just picked randomly.
No.
You know, applications were submitted, dozens, if not hundreds, and they picked the best candidates that would represent that faction.
And let's back up even further. This was the direction WDFW needed to go. The feds were involved developing this management plan not because they opened a cage and released wolves into the wild.
Right.
And now we have wolves in the landscape. They migrated out of the north. They migrated over from Idaho, which it basically had transitioned from Yellowstone. I mean, there's a migration that has taken place. For everybody who believes the wolves were reintroduced onto the landscape out of, pen-raised, farm-fresh wolves.
And what really happened, I think, is because the spread of wolves across the West was so fast, I think most people believe there's no way this is being done naturally.
Yeah.
But you had an apex predator that has a tendency to breed at an astonishing rate with an abundance of food. I mean, an absolute abundance.
Yeah.
And we know what happens with predators when they have an abundance of food. They're healthy.
Right.
And when they're healthy, they reproduce. And so this migration was just rapid. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused. Like, they had to be planting these things. I mean, we went from no wolves to, oh my God, we're infested in 20 years.
And so this is much like the private, fish groups that are in opposition to a lot of the way WDFW is managing our fisheries.
Right.
More specifically to steelhead, and now, of course, spring chinook down in Oregon and whatnot. Wild Fish Conservancy and a handful of others, their action is to simply slap lawsuits, tie up monies and personnel into litigation. If nothing else, halt the inexistent current plan in management practices, put everything on hold so they can tie it up in court for a couple of years.
Right.
Because they want to see all the wolves live. And meanwhile, then the ranchers have to endure the additional livestock being, taken apart and perhaps, more wolves getting in close to boundaries and removing dogs from homes and all those things that can happen when they're just left to do their thing.
And it's unfortunate that, and like you said, you wanted to look up this group and you wanted to see who's leading this lawsuit. And then you see the Kettle Range Conservation Group and you think, oh, they're based in Northeast Washington. It's a local group. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then when you go into their history, and on their website as they break down their history, it says right here, the Kettle Range is a unique grassroots conservation organization with regional influence. We anchor largely a urban-based conservation movement from rural Northeast Washington. So again, this is people living in rural areas, whether it's King County, and I have a hard time believing that most of their funding comes out of King County. I'm sure it comes over from the major metropolitan areas all across the country.
Right.
People in urban-based areas wanting to control how we manage the rural areas. And that is where we have this big divide in this country.
And if you remember what Chief Culp, what Lauren Culp told us, he gave us a couple examples on mob mentality and how by letting a democracy, a majority rule, rules.
Right.
And that is how we lost our rights as hunters for those that partook in the opportunity to hunt certain game with dogs. It was canvassed on a campaign throughout all of, in inner city and urban living areas where it was, oh, hey, this is cruel and inhumane. And for laypersons who are at home that don't hunt, don't know anything about it, they see this campaign because a bunch of money's thrown at it. Pretty soon everybody goes to the voting box and says, do you think hunting with hounds should be eliminated as it is proven to be an inhumane practice on wild animals? And of course you're going to check yes. And so that there is a canvassing of information that or a blanket of information that gets out to the masses. The general populace doesn't understand. It's an emotional reaction. Yes. And that's what a lot of this is in the wolves. It's an emotional reaction of how they're being managed. Now, I made it a point to say that if those in the current position of managing the wolves are stepping way out of bounds, above and beyond what the management plan calls for, and they're showing blatant disregard for the practices that need to be adhered to, and they're bypassing the procedural process that we've talked about, then by all rights, you should be slapping lawsuits against them and dragging them into court. When they're following the letter to the law, they're following the agreed to management plan, and albeit it doesn't sit well with everybody, and we've discussed that ad nauseum, there is no reason to drag them into court and litigate it and try to tie it up for a couple years because you don't believe in them killing wolves.
Right, and the lawsuit is only to stop the killing of wolves.
That's all it is.
It's take a time out. We're going to sue you, and it's going to take 6 months of legislation or 6 months of litigation to get through this. And in that time, you can't kill a wolf.
Governor Inslee overstepped his bounds over a month ago by taking influence from outside of state conservation groups who basically filed complaints against our state, against WDFW, and Governor Inslee decided it was his position to instruct the commission to make sure they institute a practice of not allowing for any wolves to be killed. He overstepped his boundary in that regard because there's a little break of chain of command, so to speak, and how that process is supposed to be worked out. Any and all of that's just, it does no good for the management of the wolves.
And all of it all the way across the board, because it's so hard. The wolf issue is one that has two sides, very distinct. There's very few people in the middle. And you hear the complaint. We got the complaint on our Facebook page. Oh, you're cherry picking data. You're cherry picking data. Well, both sides are cherry picking data.
Sure.
We're both trying to prove a point. And one thing, I think there was an article that you put out this week that talked about what effect the wolves had on the Lolo zone of Idaho. And you got a bunch of feedback. Well, you're not looking at the entire state. You're only looking at this unit. And then they wanted to come back and say,
the article was on that unit. That was the point.
Yes. Yes. And the Lolo unit was ground zero for the wolf-elk conflict. I mean, the wolves destroyed the elk in the Lolo zone. That is not up for debate. And basically what happens is people come in, well, you're not looking at the whole state. Idaho is a success story. They have record numbers. Well, that's easy to say they have record numbers, but they also delisted their wolves 8-10 years ago and have started an aggressive management plan. So to compare Idaho's situation where it's at in 2020 compared to where Washington is at in 2020 is 6, 7, 8 years down the line, and it's yet to be seen, is Washington going to follow the aggressive predator management plan that Idaho has followed in the last 5 or 6 years?
It's a process.
We don't know.
It's crawl, walk, run. We're barely getting out of crawl in Washington state. And I say that because we have one zone that is, in some regards, almost overpopulated with wolves based on the numbers, but not so much just based on recognized breeding pair. We need the two other zones to have the adequate number of breeding pairs that have been agreed upon in the management plan. Discussions last year were, do we capture and relocate? And for a lot of us, we're going, well, I hope you do, because at some point, if it's not going to happen naturally, then maybe it's time to intervene and get those breeding pairs established. Why? Yeah, you don't want to see wolves in the south, you don't want them in the northeast, but the bottom line is until they're not delisted, and you can't utilize hunting as a means of control. Once they're delisted, now you have a management plan that goes into management, conservation, issuing tags so hunters can be part of the process.
Right, and we yet to see where Washington will stand on that, but we're going to have to look at these amazing stories that were put out on Facebook and pointed towards us, that how well Idaho has recovered their wolf population as a perfect indicator of what hunting and trapping can do for our ungulates.
The article I put out, and then you followed that unknowingly just with a video that you found about some wolves chasing some elk in the snow, which is kind of very impressive to watch.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, as you said, you can pull bits and pieces, and it's not about pulling bits and pieces because they're like, oh, we're trying to make this look really good, or we want these guys to look like jackasses. It's about supportive information that shows, hey, over in this area, this is what's going on currently. Right. Hey, in this unit, this is what they're doing. Right. Okay, much like this piece right here, portions of Unit 50 and 51 in Idaho. I have no idea where those are. Right. I haven't hunted Idaho, but caught my attention, not because it said Unit 50 and 51, but because it says areas are open year-round for wolf hunting on private land. Right. So within those two recognized areas, there is a timestamp, but for 2021, it's open all year long in certain areas on private land for hunting wolves. Again, it's another insightful bit of information that they've put out to say, this is where, in this particular part of the region, this is what we are doing to manage our wolves. Right. So, and 50 and 51 will be farther down south. It starts in Unit 1 at the farthest north panhandle and works down south. But they're basically saying that the wolf population in this area needs managed, and we're going to open it year-round on private land. Right. We got a call? Oh, awesome. Yeah. Hey, welcome to the show. What's your name?
My name is Corey Arndt, and I'm from Coos Bay, Oregon. And our salmon season last year was mediocre. And if we can get out in the wintertime and do some link cod fishing and rock fishing out in the ocean, but right now our ocean's pretty rough, even to fish on the jetties.
Yeah, well, obviously with the weather we're experiencing right now, it's a little tough to get out there. What was I didn't catch your first name?
Corey.
Corey, and you're down there in Coos Bay, huh?
Yep. Okay.
Do you get out on a boat, or do you mostly jetty fish along the coast there?
I mostly jetty fish off the jetty.
Yeah. What's your main way of targeting fish off the jetty?
I mostly target link cods and black rockfish and Greenland.
Jigging them?
And also surf perch.
Oh, very nice. On the link cod, do you jig them, or do you throw some type of bait under a float?
Are you throwing plastics, or are you throwing bait?
Well, I use a teardrop rig.
Right.
Right.
It's like a surf rig, just with a single loop and a hook, and I use a small chunk of herring.
Oh, okay.
Real good. Do you find that gets hung up very much?
Or I caught one last year, was 23 and 7/8 inch long link cod.
Off the jetty. Nice fish. Nice job. How about surf perch? What's your go-to bait for surf perch? I like using clam necks. How about you?
I like to use sand shrimp or frozen uncooked shrimp.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Those work well because they're tough and they stay on very well, don't you think, in the surf?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great, Corey. How long have you been watching the show?
For the past 3 years.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. Hey, we're going to let you go. Appreciate the call. David's going to take your information. We'll send you out a price back to Coos Bay. Appreciate you giving us a call tonight, sir.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Yep.
Have you done much surf perch fishing?
I've not done hardly any at all.
Yeah, that's a good time. And that's, it's a good thing to couple up with your clam digs. We've had an abundance of clam digs going on. Right. You get out there in the early afternoon and you get your surf perch on, and then as you get towards that latter
the last couple of clam digs haven't been conducive for waiting out in the surf and trying to catch fish.
Yeah.
But the weather's going to change.
Yeah. After what, a week?
It'll come. Yeah, we got time.
Hey, so it's about that time. We're going to jump out for a quick break.
Yep.
Going to come back. We're going to be in the bait lab for a how-to. Going to kind of walk through a progression on, I get this question periodically based on some of my presentations and other things we've talked about, and bobber dogging and float fishing and jigs and beads and all that stuff this time of year, worms on jig heads, all suspended under a float. How do you know, based on the size of float, how to couple that with the appropriate inline sinker and match that with the type of presentation you're putting down? You know, where should that float be riding in the water? And what are those different color lines on the float even for?
Right.
Why isn't it just black with an orange top? You know, why do we have differences in lines and things like that? We're going to clear all that up for you, talk about float selection, and I'm actually going to tie a float rig up just to show you a couple things I like to do that makes it a successful rig that you can fish either as a sliding float for your vertical presentation for steelhead and or a fixed float, all with the same presentation. So we're going to jump in the bait lab. We come back, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on FHN. Sterl Inc. is located in Puyallup, Washington. Sterl Inc. is your neighborhood quality one-stop shop for your team, outdoor clothing, screen printing, and embroidery. At Sterl Inc., we are passionate about the outdoors and our environment. We only use environmentally safe products. If you fish, chances are you're getting a discount. At Sterl Inc., we take pride in working with the customer to get you exactly what you need. Let us help you with all your screen printing and embroidery needs at sterlinkprints.com. Welcome back to FHN. We're here at the Bait Lab, and we are going to take a little bit of time and talk about options for choosing floats for vertical presentation, and or we'll talk a little bobber dogging as well. Means jigs, beads, bait suspended under a float, whatever you choose or prefer based on confidence. It all comes down to confidence and things that you've used in the past to see if you had success. If you're fairly new to steelhead fishing and or actually changing it up, getting out of drift fishing, pulling plugs, a variety of things. Maybe perhaps you've been a hardware or spinner tosser for years, want to start doing a little float fishing to cover water. Some great options. You got to understand, you know, basically what the float is telling you as far as weight and what that number actually means, and then how much weight to suspend under your float. For me, it starts with recognizing how big a presentation you're going to put on that presentation, as in the size of your jig. Is it a 16th ounce? Is it an 1/8 ounce? Are you fishing bigger water, higher flows, a little more turbidity in the water, and you're trying to target fish at the upper ends of holes and the soft edge, as an example, and you want to use a little more weight to get that presentation down. So maybe you're using a 3/8 ounce jig. You know, can I put that on a 5/8 ounce float? Probably not. So you scale up from the size of presentation you're going to do. If I'm using a 3/8 ounce jig, first of all, let's look here at the table. I have a number of floats out here on display, and I have some pre-attached weights on the bottom of them just so we can walk through the progression. One thing I can tell you is that clear floats, for example, they may come in grams versus ounces. And I left my phone, of course, at the desk, so I can't demonstrate that. But how do we convert grams to ounces? It's pretty simple in that I simply enter into my phone how many ounces is 35 grams. And it's going to basically give me a number. It'll tell me right there how many ounces is 35 grams. I wrote it on here so you can see. You can do that with any float that says, 25 grams. How many ounces is 25 grams? Use your phone, make the math easy. 35 grams is approximately 1 1/4 ounces, okay? 1 1/4 ounces is a pretty decent sized float to use for steelhead fishing, but if I'm in that faster water that I was talking about and want to make sure my presentation's getting down and I'm going to hang a bigger weight off of there, maybe fish that 3/8 ounce jig, nice big presentation, big profile. Perhaps I'm out on the coast later season, big, aggressive buck steelhead coming out near structure. I want to get that down and in their face, make them angry, make them come after it. So I have to utilize a presentation float and weight system that's going to work well with a 3/8 ounce jig. I'm going to use something like this 1.25 ounces, and I'm going to match that up with a 3/4 ounce weight. When I do that math and I have a 3/4 ounce weight and a 3/8 ounce jig, I'm only 1/4 ounce less than what the float is rated for, which typically makes that float right in the water column, right at the level that I want to see it. Just barely enough of the top coming out to where I can see it. It's going to be vertical in the water. You know it's not going to be laying over. It's got enough weight to pull it down and keep it nice and vertical. So again, it's just a simple math thing. When I'm utilizing a 25 gram, as I throw that into my phone because I can't do the math because I'm not Canadian and I learned math in public school, so I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to use the phone. It tells me that is in and around 3/4 of an ounce. Pretty much a decent sized float to use for steelhead fishing, 3/4 of an ounce. I'm going to hang off of that a 5/8 ounce weight, anticipating that I'm probably going to use an 1/8 ounce jig. When I do that math, for me it's simple. I look at 3/4 and I look at 5/8, okay? If I take my 3/4 and convert that number to a 6, basically you're saying that you have 6/8. If I put a 5/8 weight underneath it, that's 1/8 less than what the float's rated for. I couple that with an 1/8 ounce jig head, and I'm right there at basically 3/4 of an ounce, if you follow the math that I'm saying. So that's no different than these foam floats by Bomac. I like using these. These torpedo style floats work great. They ride in the water at a real nice level. I'm going to take that 3/4 of an ounce. I'm going to double that top number, make it a 6. At 6/8, 5/8, add an 1/8 ounce jig. I'm basically right there. I don't do that every time. I like to be within the parameter. For me, over the years of fishing and realizing what your float's doing, it is anywhere from an 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce as far as the weight you're hanging underneath the float. Sometimes I like that variable, so when I add those up, I'm not actually equal to exactly what the float is. I may be an 1/8 ounce less than what the float's rated for, which is fine. Ideally, what we're trying to do is you look at the colors on those floats, okay? And I'm going to show it here on the overhead. When this is riding in the water and it's weighted at its rated weight, 3/4 of an ounce, you're going to see that white is probably right at the top of the water. You're going to just see the top of that float coming out. When I lessen that weight by 1/8 of an ounce, I really can see some of the black on the very top of that float. Now, when that's riding along in the water, and if it's a real calm piece of water, maybe it's really cold, the fish aren't real aggressive, they're just kind of maybe mouth at it a little bit, pulled around. If that float changes elevation at all, albeit slow, I'm going to see it because the white on that float against the black contrast, if my finger is the water line, as that float moves up and down, you're going to see that contrasting color. If I overweight my float and all I'm seeing basically is the very top of that float, if there's any movement on that, it's really hard to pick up on that from a distance away. I guarantee you when you're back, if you're fishing out of a boat or off the bank, and if you've weighted your float appropriately, you're going to see that water line is performing, or that float line is performing in the water to where you can see any little subtle movement. You can see when small fish are grabbing at it. You can see what's going on with your float. So matching your weight to your float in ounces, doing the math from your presentation up to the weight and to equal or just be about 1/8 of an ounce less than what the float is weighted for is going to be your most success. And that works for any size float, okay? It doesn't matter what it's rated for, you're gonna match the weight. Here, I've actually gone with a 5/8, and I put a 3/8 underneath it. I had an 1/8 ounce jig, basically 3/8 plus an 1/8 ounce jig is 4/8. 4/8 underneath it on a 5/8 weighted float. Basically, I'm 1/8 less than the what the float's rated for, and that's going to work just fine. Remember, on our bobber dogging floats, these are not designed to fish vertically. Okay, these are basically rigged completely different. These floats are going to slide on our top shot of line. It has a stopper, typically 8 feet up on the line. This, for demonstration purposes, is right here. I put an indicator bead that always tells me I'm maxed out against my stop. I put a protection bead underneath it. And this just goes right to a basic barrel swivel with a lock. And that's what we're hanging our lead off of. Of course, if you follow us, you know we like to use our stick leads on our crane swivels below our barrel swivel. That is how we rig that. So again, this flat bottom float, albeit it's cupped, is not made to fish in a vertical presentation, unlike these floats here with an inline sinker. That is a vertical presentation. This is a bobber dog float, should be going down the river lying on its side, if you've rigged it appropriately. So a few things to think about when you're rigging your float. And I'm going to walk you through the real quick process here. This is my top shot. It's 20 pound or 15 pound I've put on. I'm probably running 30 pound braid, and I got a 15 or 20 pound top shot depending on time of year I'm fishing and if we're going after hatchery fish or wild fish, okay? So first thing we're going to do is you got to have your bobber stop. Now, if you haven't used these Bomac bobber stops before, I highly recommend that you do. For monofilament, they work great. They come on a little ring. You have this rubber bobber stop. You simply put the line through the eye at the top, pull that tight against there, as you can see, and now we're just going to work that right off of the wire, and now it's on your line. So now all you have to do is simply slide that up, get it out of your way. Okay, now got to chase my stuff around here. Before I put the float on, I like to put my indicator. That just always tells me from a distance I can see that my float is maxed out. So that indicator goes on, and sometimes when you put that little stopper on there, it crimps your line, makes it tough to get through the float, so you just cut that end off, straighten it out. Now we're going to put our 1/2 ounce float on. If I can feed that on through there. Real simple, guys. 1/2 ounce float, slide that up the line, okay? Underneath that, I'm gonna put a bead. This bead goes on the line next. This is what the float rides against when it's sitting at the bottom, and so it doesn't, the float isn't constantly beating against your knot, okay? You don't want the float sliding down and just hammering on your knot, so you put that protection bead in there, rides over the knot, float comes down, hits against the bead. So now I have a 1/2 ounce float. I got a 3/8 ounce inline sinker. These are great because they're swiveled at both ends. That works very well. It really prevents line twists. So we're just going to tie this on here real quick. So this is an inline sinker for your inline vertical presentation. Underneath this, we are going to hang a jig. And again, doing the math, I got a 1/2 ounce float. I put a 3/8 inline sinker, and we'll secure that up like that, okay? So now the weight is on there. If I slide all this down, all right? Now, that is one way to rig that, okay? And we can tie a leader and a jig on the bottom end of that, but that there is a sliding float. And if I'm gonna fish that all day long and constantly use a sliding float, that's great, okay? But there are certain times where you want to make sure you can fish a fixed float and or a sliding float. And it's a real easy adjustment. All you have to do before you tie your weight on, okay? So you take your bead back off. Let's use a second bobber stop. Instead of rubber bands or any type of crimping or anything else, you simply put on, oh, excuse me, my bead fell off. Put the bead on, okay? Put the bead on now, put on your bobber stop. We're going to cinch that on there, okay? Now I'm going to tie that weight back on there. We got time, we'll just do this real quick. I want to show you guys, because some guys get a little confused in that, you know, I want to fish a sliding float, I want to fish a fixed float, I take 2 rods. Not necessary. If you're just starting out bobber fishing, you may think that that's exactly what you need to do, but I'm telling you, it's very easy with a simple little bobber stop to accomplish both of those, and it works fantastic. Okay, so that's our weight tied on there. Now that bottom bobber stop, we're going to move all the way down. Okay, and let me pick this up. So there is weight, there is the bobber stop, there's the bead, there's the top bead, and I'll go up the line here. I'm going to get my top bobber stop. Now, if I'm fishing this vertically, I got a jig hanging underneath there at about 18 inches a leader, and I set this to stop a couple feet up. When I cast that out and that sinks down, that is going to stop against the bobber stop. That's my presentation going through the water column, okay? When I reel in and cast, it's going to gather line, it's going to slide through, it's going to do exactly what a slipping float wants, you know, what it should do. The one thing about a slip float when you're fishing jigs, sometimes as you're mending your line and you're holding back a little bit, keeping your line up off the water, you can actually, by holding back too much, you actually draw the line through your float and it pulls your jig up and out of the water column at the level you've set it, unbeknownst to you. It's just because you're trying to finesse that jig down the seam, and you're holding back on that rod just enough, and you don't really understand or can't see that line sliding through there. But what it's doing is it's raising your presentation as it travels downriver because you're holding back a little too much. If you want to alleviate that problem, you simply use that second stop underneath. Okay, so now you're going to set this as a fixed float, and by bringing those two together, I can hold back on that all day long, and as long as that floats in the water, your depth is set. Now keep in mind I got a jig under here about 18 inches, okay? So now I'm fishing a fixed float, and that's not going to move because it's stopped in between those two bobber stops. So whether you want to fish it fixed or by simply leaving this down here by your swivel, now you're fishing a slider float. You basically have the best of both worlds in one rigging or presentation, and you're going to be much more successful in your jig presentation, your beads under a float, whether you're fishing worms, inverted, whatever type of presentation you want under your float. It all works. Doesn't matter if you use it fixed or sliding. The fact is you've thought it out ahead of time and you rig this so that it can be either or, okay? Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight, how to match your weight to your float, gives you the opportunity to fish it either fixed or sliding, and hopefully you'll find some success on the river. Okay, with that, we are gonna jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're gonna be back in studio. I think we're getting Matt Messin on the phone, Messin Around Charters, and we're going to find out exactly how the blackmouth fishing is performing up here in Puget Sound, Area 10 on the opener yesterday and today. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Matt Messin right here on FHN. Sterling is located in Puyallup, Washington. Sterling is your neighborhood quality one-stop shop for your team, outdoor clothing, screen printing, and embroidery. At Sterling, we are passionate about the outdoors and our environment. We only use environmentally safe products. If you fish, chances are you're getting a discount. At Sterling, we take pride in working with the customer to get you exactly what you need. Let us help you with all your screen printing and embroidery needs at sterlingprints.com.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back in the studio. Hopefully you stuck with me through that presentation. Got any questions on the bobber selection and or how you weight your floats, or how you do that fixed versus sliding rig? Just hit us up here with some messages. Hopefully we can straighten that out for you and help you find some success on the river. Now, Barn, I'm taking a little back step from the river, get out onto the salt because it's opened back up. Chase a little blackmouth. Our buddy Matt Messing has been out there messing around, so to speak.
Yep.
No pun intended. Messing around charters. Area 10, Matt, Puget Sound. You've been out there for the last couple of days, wind and rain, and a few fish. How's it been going, man? How you been?
Yeah, doing awesome.
Yeah.
It's a little slower than I was expecting.
Little slower than you were expecting.
Is that due to the weather?
I don't think so. I don't know why it's that. But they're starting to come in. I think they're picking up now.
Yeah. Any progression through your presentation, or did you kind of just go out there with the standard messing presentation that's gotten it done in years past and finally found some fish, or did you have to kind of go through a progression on that?
No, yeah, a little bit. I'm using a newer spoon that I got from got a buddy up in D.C. that's got a tackle company. And so he's got some new ones out. It's kind of like almost like a Gibbs Skinny G.
Oh, okay.
A little more bend. It's and more of a shape, kind of like a Kingfisher.
Was that in your picture that you sent out today with the couple that you got?
Yep, that was the one.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, that spoon's just been hammering it. I mean, we're getting lots of action. It's just trying to find the keepers has been the tough part.
Right.
Are you marking many fish?
Yeah, I've been marking quite a bit. Not a lot of bait though. Little patches of bait here and there.
Mm-hmm. What about depth of water? How far down you got to find these guys?
I was fishing like 150 to 135 today.
Mm-hmm. Everything right on the deck? Right
on the deck.
Yep.
Bouncing that bottom.
Right. Color of spoon that you're throwing? What are you looking at there?
So that thing's got glow on the back, and then just kind of like a greenish, purple to it, kind
of. Same old standard
glow.
Oh yeah, on your flashers.
Yep, glow on the flash. I always use a lot of glow.
Yeah, glow and UV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not marking much bait, huh? Did you were you able to check the stomach contents of the ones you got? They got anything in there? They feeding?
I did. There was nothing in their bellies.
Wow. No kidding.
They were both empty.
Yeah. What size of fish you finding right now?
Everything's like an inch shy. There seems to be a lot of wilds out there. A lot of fins, I should say.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the better bite action? What part of the tide was the better bite action?
Yeah.
So today we had a high tide about 10 o'clock, and it seemed about like 11. Almost an hour after. Like it's kind of like a little delayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bite just it comes on, and it's a pretty good bite. It lasts for a while.
Just a lot of sublegals, huh? Or wild fish?
A lot of sublegals, and then the ones that were the right length had fins on them for me. Today we got two today. It was a good day.
Yeah. Did you run exclusively spoons all day? You running any bait? I know some guys are running some herring.
Yeah, I'm not doing any herring. Just a hoochie on one side and a spoon on the other.
Yeah. How much action is the hoochie getting compared to the spoon?
It's been about 50-50 so far.
Okay. What's your go-to color patterns on your squids? I know I got a couple that I favor, especially for blackmouth.
Green glow splatterback.
Yeah. Is there any other hoochie?
I don't think, maybe one other hoochie might work, but.
Right. Yeah. I would venture to guess you're probably not going out tomorrow unless you're absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I'm not. No, next 2 days are days off. Right. Unless you like being stuck in a washing machine. I mean, yeah go for it.
What's your max wind and wind waves and combination thereof, chop, that you will continue to venture out there. That area 10 can get pretty tossed up when you get that wind pushing through there just right. What's your no-go? Where do you draw the line?
No-go, like, especially if I'm taking customers, it is like 12 knots, you know, even looking at like 10 to 12 knots.
Right.
Once it kind of gets into that area, it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the waves, it's controlling your troll at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, if you got a, cabin boat or something, you're just getting blown. It's really hard to kind of keep course, and then just, it gets frustrating, kind of loses the fun, you know?
Yeah, it becomes a lot of work. And I've been out there when it's kicked up to about 10, and let me tell you, my 18-foot boat, it's just not fun. Everything's bouncing around and just getting, jacked up and down way too much, and it's difficult to stay on your line, that's for sure. So any pointers for folks that are going to venture out after this weather settles down? Using any scent or anything on your spoons or flashers?
No scent.
No scent? All color?
Just all, yeah.
Very good. Okay.
I keep it pretty simple these days, and it seems to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully we start seeing a few more fish flushing in and around there. I definitely want to come up, and as soon as we get a little break in the weather here, I got quite a bit of time coming up, Barnum, here in January. So Matt, be giving you a call and see if we can't get on the boat, get some good video and whatnot. Little how-to stuff for our viewers, and try to give them some insight on things to put together to have success out there on Puget Sound. So got that to look forward to.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, buddy. Well, wanted to check in. Obviously, knew you'd be fishing the opener as of yesterday, and you got a lengthy season ahead of you. You got some openings coming up. What number? Give me a phone number or a website folks can find you at, and how they can get a hold of you, book a trip.
360-621-2681. Just give me a call. Let me know when you want to go.
Messin Around Charters, always a pleasure, buddy. We will be in touch. I guarantee it.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Yep, you bet. Take care.
All right.
Yep. Bye.
So, Barnum?
Clayton Brundage said here up in the CQ area, and I'm sure it holds true for the Blackmouth, if it ain't green and it don't glow, it don't go.
Yeah, well, even with the fall Chinook, in the summer fishery up there, Area 10, it had to be glowing green. Some of our best days with double numbers of Chinook on the deck, in the net and release. But it's depending where you're fishing up there. Area 9 this last year kicked out a good number of good sized fish. We had a lot of motivation. I mean, it was like, wow, these are impressive. They're big. They're healthy.
Yeah.
The numbers are great. There were guys up there just absolutely crushing them.
Remember that early.
Yeah. And in Area 10, we were getting into a good number of fish, and it sustained for quite a while. And with that forecast of them coho, we thought, oh man, this is going to be a fantastic year. And the coho was kind of up and down, kind of dicey, as we know, and the humpies were kind of, And David and I and Sherry went and fished the Everett Coho Derby. And the day after that, that's when they cut it back to one fish. Which is interesting that you have a multi-class fish like Chinook. And you had a very solid return of that 4-year class of fish. And we got into our coho, which is a 3-year class. And nothing happening. So, Matt runs a phenomenal charter business up there in Area 10, in Area 9. He has got that stuff dialed. He's a good ally to have when I'm up there on the water, because if it ain't happening, I'm like, dude, what do you got going on?
Where you at? What you doing?
And it's not necessarily presentation as far as what you're putting out there. If you're utilizing things that have worked in the past, even with these blackmouth, it's oftentimes location. And basically what the tide's doing. So
it's such a huge asset to have a network of other fishermen that you can talk to throughout a fishing day. Whether it's down at Buoy 10 where I'm talking to Cody Herman or other people, or it's out in the ocean out of Westport where I'm talking to a lot of Mark's captains with All River Charters. Like, it's such a huge asset to be able to make that phone call. And what are you seeing where you're at, and is it comparable? Even when we're catching fish, making that phone call,
just making sure you're not missing something, right? Yeah, or they may call you.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you got going on?
Right.
Are you guys finding them? Yeah, get over here. Yeah. It's the same for up there in Puget Sound. And to be honest, I'm kind of getting anxious to get out and finally get doing some steelhead fishing. Yeah. But the numbers are not good.
No.
And next week we're going to delve into kind of what's going on out here in the Grays Harbor and the coastal area. Put some numbers to it. I'm trying to track down a few bits more of information. I want to try to walk you guys through the process on where the smolt plants are at relative to hatchery fish, some of the deciding factors and why those numbers continue in some regards to decline. I think I pointed out a couple weeks ago, 2016 we had 172,000 winter fish planted on the Wainuchi. This year's return of winter run is a plant class of 88,000.
So half.
Almost half.
Yeah.
Right? And what do you get when you times that by 1%? 880 fish.
Right.
And what do you get when you put a 0.5% return?
Right.
440 fish. And I had mentioned it before, and I use the Wainuchi because it's so well known throughout this entire, you know, it's no secret. It's overcrowded. I almost don't even want to fish it for winter run fish anymore. But I say the name to give you an idea and correlate that with 75 boats a day, 60 boats a day, whatever, 75 boats a day typically throughout December, January, going after hatchery fish. And if we're at a 0.5% return, maybe we're doing a little better out here than Puget Sound. I'm going to get some of those numbers to qualify that statement. But even if it's a 1% return, 880 fish for the hatchery season, yeah, there's wild fish mixed in there. But for the hatchery season on something like the Wainuchi out here in Grays Harbor, with that many boats per day, and if we have a really bad year, like it's yet to be seen how this year will materialize or not, we're getting another bump in water, as you said. Once that settles down and we don't have fish, boy, I tell you what, the handwriting's on the wall. We've had 2 water events now, good water events that should bring fish in. December was a bust. We're going into January. You know, it's not looking real positive. If we're at that 0.5% margin, 400 hatchery fish coming back, and Wainuchi's just an example.
Hard to reach escapement with 400 fish coming back.
Hard to reach escapement when that's your hatchery numbers. And I think I will next week be able to shed some light on what the actual escapement numbers are for our wild fish on some of these systems here in this region and what the forecast is. And then you have to have that conversation. Can you conduct a fishery when you're trying to fish on the side of conservation, but there's hatchery fish to be removed, but if recreational folks are going after those hatchery fish and having encounters of wild fish, then the co-managers have a right to fish as well. But let me run this by you before we get out of here. On average, it's been proven that if we have, say, 7,000 wild fish coming back, okay, we know we have 7,000 wild fish coming back. Over the course of a couple months, as those fish are migrating through, and I don't care what river you're talking about, these are just numbers. With moderate pressure from the recreational community, your encounter rate, hook, land, and release is going to be 250 wild fish. Mortality rate is 10%. Out of 7,000 wild fish, how many fish are we killing?
25.
25. So we will own that. We will be like, out of 7,000 fish, we're killing 25. How long does it take a gill net to kill 25 wild fish in that same river?
About one drift.
And yet there's a season of, you know, commercial harvest that would continue because if we're fishing, they're fishing. This is the conflict when you talk, and I've said it often, you cannot have in the same conversation or same sentence conservation and gill net. The two don't belong in the same conversation, let alone the same river. So it's disheartening when you start putting numbers to paper and actually try to figure out what's going on. And when you take a look at it like that, when it's been told to me that under a run of 7,000 fish, we're going to encounter 250 wild fish, we're going to kill 10%, we're going to kill 25 fish, and they're going to gill net for 2 or 3 months. Now, co-management, I get it. We're fishing, they're fishing, but that's where we come back to alternative methods. Selective harvest. Conservation-driven selective harvest. Until we get there, that we're not the ones.
There doesn't seem to be much of a push in that direction as much anymore. Like you heard a lot about the seine fisheries and stuff like that for a while, and now that's just kind of all faded away again.
There's just not a lot of drive behind it. I believe it's because those that hold the gill nets hold a lot of power in how the fishery agreements come together. How the allocations are divided at the table, and who has the final say whether or not WDFW gets permitted to conduct those fisheries. So it's a complicated mess. Until we really get our minds wrapped around conservation, until we see more of our rivers closing down, which, you know, some people think there's some sinister plan that's the goal of certain persons to get our fisheries shut down so that then they can work on conservation.
Well, and I don't know if that's the goal or not, but that's the direction it feels like it's heading.
I would certainly like to think that that is not the goal of WDFW and or the co-managers, but you know, there's a lot of things at stake there if you start going down that road. So I don't want to see that. I want to see abundance fish runs for everybody, as most of you do.
Yeah, it's a new year. It's 2020. Let's see the graph start doing this.
Yeah. Some serious changes got to come about. Okay, that's going to do it for us here this week on FHN. Thanks for hanging in there this evening. Lots of statements and questions. If we didn't get you answered, we'll try to throw some of this up here after the show. If you got more questions, please, by all means, join us on Facebook during the week. Jump over to our YouTube channel, give us a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, start building those numbers for us. Really appreciate it if you do. We'll be back next week. Got a host of topics to tackle. A lot of it's going to be around steelhead numbers, kind of the condition we're in, the situation we're in, see where it's going to go. If you don't have an opportunity to get out, chase some steelhead, maybe get out, get some crabbing, go out to Puget Sound, get some blackmouth. And you know what? If you want to get a little change of weather and scenery, get to the west side. I'm going to try to get our buddy Austin Mosier on next week. Kokanee fishing and triploid. Not a bad choice this time of year. You're going to be cold either way. Might as well go.
But maybe not as cold as you think over there.
Might be a little chilly and dry. Right. And you might get into some good kokanee and rainbow fishing, or triploid fishing, as we say. That is an option that we're going to basically look into for the following week. So have a great week. Stay in touch. We'll be relevant, so you can be as well. Thanks for watching. See you next Thursday right here on FHN.